Ready? Richie, you ready now?
Okay, no, it's Richie. No hassle.
I'm ready now. Are you ready now? You ready now, Richie?
Yes, Can you recall the best goal you scored this season? What goal sticks in the memory?
Well, really Donegal, the 6th memory was against McDaid United when lost the cup, played at Burt. It was our second goal. It was a 1-2 with Liam Burns. I thought it was my best goal.
Now, you scored 36 goals this season. What sort of goals were they? Were they scored on the ground? Were they headers? Were they left-footed, right-footed? What kind of goals were they?
Well, I think most of them was on the ground. Unusual for me because I usually score them in the air, but most of them was the ground.
Did they come from crosses?
Biggest majority. A few must go from free balls, but the biggest majority is from crosses.
How many came from set pieces or things like that? Are Grianan good at set pieces?
Well, they're not bad at set pieces, but very, very few came from set pieces.
Stephen, I remember you as a defender, and now I see you scoring goals, which surprises me. Was it hard to make the adjustment from being a defender to play as a forward?
It's a big difference because I think playing up front is different completely as playing in defence, because I'm usually better coming to the ball, coming to defence, not to the ball played to me, so I think it takes a bit of a difference changing to the centre forward.
If that's the case, why have you scored so many goals?
Must put it down to the service I'm getting.
Well, you were saying about the service. Of course, modern football is all about having somebody playing along with you up front. Who plays with you up front?
Well, there's Seamus plays, and Liam Burns, and well, last season Gallagher.
Can I say, have you developed any understanding with the other striker? I mean, how important is it that that you should understand the other fellas play as well, the other striker?
It's very important. I've come to a good understanding now with Liam Burns especially, from beginning of this season even. So it took a lot of time to adapt to it, but we're getting on fine now.
Has he been scoring goals as well?
He's been scoring a few as well. Not as many as me right now, but he scored a few as well.
Okay. I mean, can you tell me something about that match?
Well, the team didn't play as well as they up to the final and the Gallagher Cup. The back five seemed to sort of get the better of them, because it was, it was a few players didn't play up to their reputation.
Were you disappointed with the result?
I was really, yeah.
Did you feel beforehand that Grianan could win the match?
I thought they should have won it on the results of the season against our players and our opposition, we were a better team all season.
Well, looking back, Jude, you've been playing for Grianan Celtic for a long time. How would you compare the
16 years?
16 years. Right. How would you compare the current side with the the side going back 10, 12 years?
Well, now football's different because it's more in, there's more physical way back, and what a stronger team then. And a better side, if I may say so.
well, looking at Grianan Celtic, looking to the future, do you feel that, for instance, the current side can come out of the second division?
No, I don't really believe it now, because we're on a few young players this year, and I don't really think there's too much a gap between the young and the senior players in the team.
Well, what about the younger players? What are they like?
Some good prospects now, like say Darren McDermott there, McDaid, they'll be good prospects, alright, but I don't think they're dedicated as should be.
Well, looking forward, I mean, can you say over a season or two have a side good enough to play in the first division of the National League?
I would say take at least 3 seasons, not more.
Because you can recall.
But then they're like Andy, then retired, you're going to live a big hole in the thing, but yeah.
Do you think Andy Higgett is still an important member of the side?
Well, I mean, his trophies proved still in it when he got there for the good player of the year. So therefore,
does that say something about the standard of Andy after 22, 23 years is still?
Well, Andy's I wouldn't like anybody playing it Andy now, like, because there'd be no other all up against. If it was way back 20 years ago, like when they was playing for the Rovers.
What about Grianan Celtic as a club? I mean, they're still going as well now as they were, say, 16 years ago.
At a club, there were a few years now they were a wee bit down, but at a club, yeah, they're going as well. As a team, maybe not so much as a club, like, not the homely atmosphere that used to be, like.
Why do you think that is, Stuart?
Well, I suppose you lost your old players from them and you sort of ducked away and it's a wee bit different. You teach you to how to adapt to the younger players, like.
Is there a good spirit in the side?
Most of the time now there is, but again, I think teamwork's lacking a bit.
How often do you
And
train?
ability, how often do they train that it's possible now, quite frankly.
And yet they still managed to get to the final of the Gallagher Cup.
2 seasons running.
Without training.
But then again, they should have also won the league. There was no excuses, in my opinion. Then I would say the standard's pretty high for them.
And look at this season's league, you don't feel that Grianan Celtic can...
I think if they consolidate themselves in the second division this season, maybe next season, just maybe
with the younger players coming
with
through.
the younger players, but I think it'll take a couple of the seasons to do the job properly.
Alright.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ready? Okay. Can I ask you first, Matt, how you feel about Grianan Celtic's performances in the season just finished there?
Well, I was very disappointed in the final of the Fire Gallagher because I thought we had experience. We had players, Jim, Andy, Stephen, Shim, yourself, playing years. We should have won, but the was not playing at all.
Is that where you think you lost the Gallagher Cup final?
Aye, because we thought the older players, should have helped the younger players, but yourself.
When I was speaking to you before the Gallagher Cup final, you said you weren't going to watch the match. Did you watch the match?
Well, I did, because I was in the hospital and I had a thick injury and yourself, around 20 years, and I thought, I had a good one.
Well, you say you've been 20 years with Grianan Celtic. Looking back over those 20 years, what would you say is the best side that Grianan Celtic ever had?
Well, years 76, 77 to NHL League, undefeated, 33 matches, 33 matches, 29 wins, 4 draws. I think that's still, if you look back by an NHL League record, would be very good. I mean, you had Buchanan, Naval, Carcall, Westbrook.
What division of the National League were you in that year?
Second division.
So you get...
We went from second to first division.
And how did Grianan Celtic do in the first division?
Well, that was and go back to the league in the second year. But younger generation said, and we were could become dominant for it.
Well, you were talking about the season there when you were undefeated in the National League. Looking over that season, who would you say is the best player ever to play for Grianan Celtic? Was it in that season, or was it, was it somewhere else?
Well, that season we had more hungry players, the league rescue players, the cricket players. I thought over years, Sean Crawford was a good because he could hit a ball quite into
You think he was the best player to play for Grianan?
Well, Andy, he said he could do business and Jude.
Why do you think Andy was important? Was he scoring goals?
Well, he was scoring goals then, and yourself, he's like myself, he's a long time about business. And,
he's reverted to being a defender?
Yes, he had to come back instead of forward, but I thought when Andy come back, come on this season, he asked me to come to Grianan Celtic, I think he helped great with his experience, one thing or another.
Matt, looking back over 20 years of Grianan Celtic, there's a lot of goals scored there. Can you remember one goal that stands out in the memory? One really great goal that perhaps might match of the day if it had been on television or something like that?
Yes, it's not with us now, done a story. Leonard took a corner against a little cup match. Up in Burt. The ball was headed out. And he hit it from like 20 yards. The net, doing the lower net was me. That was a great goal, the season.
Looking forward to the future, where do you think Grianan Celtic are going?
Well, as Jude says earlier on, the chairman, says earlier on, blend now youth with experience, but to bring the second division back this year to the Father of Garrett, because we've gone 2 years in the final of Father of Garrett, which we should have been lifting at the runners' trophies instead of the runners-up trophies.
Well, Jude was saying you might be happy to stay in the second division if the young players come through.
Well, if the young fellas do come through, they don't want it.
Of course, you have your old rivals over the hill, Gallagher, in the second division as well.
Yes, and the other old rivals, I think, some battle between you and Andy may occur this year, and well, we look forward to playing Clay, and the minister for people says Clay, Burt, and kicking match. It's not a kicking match with Burt, Clay, or
I don't think it's a kicking match between Grianan and Cyril.
No,
it's an enjoyable
yes.
thing.
No, I think it's you played on a couple of times, you played against them a couple of times last year yourself, you enjoyed it.
Immensely.
Yes, the young fellas played it. Gives you more experience.
So you think Grianan Celtic, they've had a good 20 years and they have another good 20 years coming up?
Well, I hope so, Richie. If I ever in, loving that now, I mean, you see it.
I must say you look tonight like you'll be around for a long time.
Well, that's a man above. As you know yourself as an hospital, and you pray every day. You pray every day. Alright?
Okay. Right. Andy, you've just been voted Players Player of the Year. Why do you think you've been made the Players Player of the Year?
To be honest, I don't think it is. It's definitely the player on last year.
Right, can I say to you, Andy, you've been playing for more than 20 years. What do you think about the standard now?
As you know yourself, we are just comparing the 10 years together. That's a far easier thing to know. I think at the age I'm really, and yourself are still really,
Well, talking about the age you are, Andy, how much longer do you think you can go on?
Well, the way things are going now, I would say that I could go another 5 years.
Right, I notice that now you're playing as a defender. Why is that? Obviously you feel that, Andy, you were a great goal scorer. You scored goals against some of the best defenders in the game, both at junior and senior level. And now you've moved back to being a defender. Why is that?
Well, I think it's because as you know yourself, when you get on and you can't slow down a lot. With that experience I have, and when they win the game, I'm sort of behind the defence as able to, and I'm just hitting that's what's that's the idea. They've been just been 50 years, which as a lot of in the world.
20 years ago, Andy, you were one of the best goal scorers in the junior game and intermediate game. In fact, I suspect you could have played senior football and you scored goals against senior defenders. Looking at the game now, say you were a young man and you were 20 years younger, how would you fancy your chances of scoring goals now as the game is now?
I've lost count.
You think you're your man goals?
Definitely.
How much do you think the game has changed in the last 20 years? I mean, it was a different game from when you were playing, say, over 20 years ago. I mean, say for a goal scorer, how much has it changed?
I think the goals is easy. From what I see myself, I think goals are easily. Well, I'm going from the way, when I was playing off, I see myself, I never got that probably,
Is that because the defenders are not as good now, do you think?
They're not. I think there's what I call TV football.
Well, looking at the modern game, Andy, when you played in the beginning, there really was nobody to assist the striker. You were a centre forward, and the centre forward was on his own. the modern centre forward tends to play with another player. But, I mean, how would you fancy playing like that?
Well, I think it would have, got it from three, you know. I think we did try it once, as you find yourself. You know, before the worst, Gus Harvey. He hasn't used that.
Two strikers.
I didn't come off, bill.
Well, looking, Foyle Rovers obviously a successful junior side, and then you moved to Grianan Celtic. You know, there was a difference there with it. Well, what I think that's basically it, is it? Was not. Oh, just to get one further question. What about Grianan Celtic? You've been playing for them for a long number of years. You know, where are they going? Do you think they can get back into the first division of any show league?
I think they can, and I think I think like country with the university, it could be done a year.
You think it could be done this year?
So if they would, between now and when the league's third state, it could be possible that they could have a Indian granted back, you know, and then all the results we played, then teams we played, really all the same teams that were on the last season. We could, I think.
What about the younger players that are coming through into the Grianan Celtic team? Are they as good as the guys who played, say, in the last 10 years?
I would say that I'll maybe before they can settle in.
But you're prepared to say, Andy, that perhaps Grianan Celtic this season
Could do it
might
this
be in
season.
promotion to
They
the
could
first
do that.
division?
Even though they got off their best start.
Okay.